Welcome back to Q Dads, it's me Steve, and yes, episode 2 of Foundation continues, and in this episode we get a lot of information, some scary things that are going to be upcoming with the use of the black hole bomb. And of course, the big twist at the end with Gale and Dawn working together. So let's dive in, let's discuss all of these points and see how this episode shapes up. So of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with the show and everything Foundation. And of course everyone, no book spoilers, we only cover this from a TV show aspect. So the show opens up with us learning about the journey of Gale on Ignis, with her group of Mentalics. Her and Harry essentially come out every year or so for a few weeks to teach them the ways of psychohistory, but it quickly comes apparent that they are falling behind, with Harry taking one for the team and agreeing to stay awake. So Harry essentially says he'll remain for another year while Gale goes on ahead and gets some rest, but of course he doesn't. Of course he jumps forward, so we are now catching up at the same time, that 152 year time gap. And this is when we get to see Old Man Harry, which I must say completely shocked me and I did not expect it at all. This is a big section of time that we know nothing really about. What has he altered and what measures has he put in place? He actually uses a new technique to open the Radiant to show different information, and what he shows is the Invictus jumping from one galaxy to another and says this is what's coming up. Now, this new way of opening was very interesting, as it seems to me like each person who interacts with it could have their own vault of information that they need this special pass to open. So, firstly, this is really interesting, as the two prime radiants are entangled. So what happens to one, happens to the other. So I'm going to speculate that Demoiselle has not seen these new bits of information within the Radiant, as she doesn't have the key. Secondly, has Harry been able to communicate with Demoiselle over the years through the Radiant? Let me know your thoughts. Moving on, he then mentions about 8 crises, which I don't think we've heard that information before, but of course the focus point is the third, the turning point. After that, the plan can never be put back on track. But it's interesting here that he was showing us the Invictus, and of course how the Invictus jumps to different galaxies. Now, is that because of the shot we got with the black hole bomb? I guess the question is, does the black hole bomb need to hit matter for it to work? Could it be made big enough to cause a galaxy-wide event, ultimately killing all life in it? And is that why the Invictus might be becoming important again? And actually the way it jumps might once again be needed to get into or away from the bomb. Is the Invictus once again a saviour to our crisis? Or ultimately, could the black hole bomb be used as a way to destroy the Mule, which ultimately actually brings around the third crisis? As the only other world-ending device to be seen or used in the series is the Invictus. And a bit like the first nuke, the creation of the black hole bomb ultimately sets a path in motion to the end that cannot be escaped. And it's now very interesting that both Foundation and Empire have planet-killing capabilities. And just while we're on this thought, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I thought the third crisis was the Mule. But the way Harry speaks about it in this episode, it almost feels like the Mule is something completely different, and then they still have the third crisis to deal with. Now, during all the time that passes, of course, Harry is left to become old and age gracefully, and what he essentially says is that Gale is almost at the epicentre of psychohistory, the heart of the plan, and that she needs to continue this journey alone, when this is where we get a few interesting things. Firstly, we see Callie again, and then Harry mentions to her about Una's world and wanting to get another body. Now, I can't help but ask, is this the first time that conversation has come up, or has it floated around before? Has Harry already gone to Una's world and decanted another version of himself that we might be seeing later in the season? He seems to know more about what happened to him whilst he was there than we're led to believe in season 2. And then of course, Callie does something spectacular and opens a rift in space and time, and Harry is amazed and mentions how there's no need for spacers. He then follows up with a quote from Cell, from when she originally tells him that they need Harry to have skin in the game. He asks Callie why is that, and the answer we get from her is because we can't. So again, this makes us ask, who is Callie? What is Callie? The ability to open a portal to move through time and space without any other technology is absolutely crazy. So I don't actually think that this will be the end of Old Man Harry, and even Harry in general, because I think we'll be seeing more than just digital Harry moving forward. And for the first time in Foundation, we have to ask ourselves, are there gods or higher creations? Could Callie actually be a hangover from the robot war? A super AI? Because in the last episode, when Demoiselle was talking about how robots decided to essentially look after humanity as a whole and not the individual, and this is almost what this feels like. Callie has clearly pushed and nudged humans, but with the ultimate goal to save humanity. So yeah, to me, Callie and the others, as she clearly says we can't help, might actually be AIs. It's that, or we are dealing with gods, and I just don't feel like the world building in Foundation really centres around the idea of gods actually existing. So let us know your thoughts on Callie and Harry and the possibility of AI or even gods. Then we get a few different things as time has caught up with ourselves. We get Empire again talking over the Radiant, and this is where Dusk is worried and wants to help. He wants to deal with the problem, and whether that's just him living with the fear that his end is coming in 10 days or not is a different story. But Demoiselle, of course, refuses to extend his life, leaving this in the hands of Day. Now, later on, when Dusk tries to beg him to change their life expectancy, this is where we realise that ultimately a previous day shortened their life expectancy, and only he has the power to extend it. Is this a new change, or is he referring to Cleon the First? So I imagine that this nugget of information will come back up in a later episode, and Day may change a few things of the rules to prevent Dawn from getting into power. We then move on to Calgon and the Mule, who introduces us to his Black Tongue ship. Great name, by the way. He's now talking to a council of people within Calgon, and more importantly, the Archduke's daughter is now involved. Now for me, this scene is incredibly powerful. He talks openly to the group about his ability to manipulate people's emotions in a conversation around conversion, and the fact that he only has to control a few individuals before the rest naturally fall into place. For example, Skirtlet, with her actually almost shooting herself in this scene. It's just really impactful. And this is possibly a teaser of what's to come, the brutality of the Mule. It's hard to tell where his power begins and where it ends, because like he said, he finds it difficult to control all those minds at once. We saw in episode 1 where he briefly controlled the minds of soldiers, but yet in this he clearly states that sometimes he only needs to change the minds of a few and the rest will fall into place. So let's have a little talk about the powers I'm seeing at the moment. Now, in all power systems, there has to be a weakness. The Mule seems to have unlimited pushing ability, but I wonder if it's more limited than we think. So when Skirtlet is being asked for the gun back, she is reluctant to return it. He has to promise to return it at a later date. Now, is this simply to show how good his powers are? Or is there a limit on how many times a person can be pushed? Or is it something stranger? And basically, he's not able to reverse something he's pushed. So, for example, telling herself to shoot herself, once that conviction happens, that's it, and he's unable to change it. Again, this leads into that massive demonstration of power he needs to show, as actually, his ability to force his conviction on people is more limited than he makes out. But, as we know, just the thought of being compelled is enough to bring most people in line anyway. Let me know your thoughts on this. How do you think his powers work? And from a TV aspect only, please. We get a quick scene of Day gambling his heirlooms away, and of course continuing to take these spores as his addiction seems very out of control, almost reliant on this substance. Now for me, this scene was very powerful. We actually see that this Day cares for his fellow men much more. We see him cheat at the card game, and at first we assume to win, but then he loses, and then he talks to the soldier about his poorly child. We can then see that Day lost on purpose to give the heirloom to him to sell in order to try and buy more time for his child. This is a total contrast to any Day we've seen before, and I'm really enjoying seeing it. For me, does this spell the end of Empire, but not in the way we all thought? Empire might simply end because they no longer have the same conviction as Cleon I. As it's clear in this episode, Dusk, Dawn and Day all have very different mentalities. I wonder if this is due to the Radiant, and knowing that your time is almost over, it almost makes them be their own men. Again, let me know your thoughts. We then get to see Torren Mallow, as we then learn that his descendants set up the Alliance of Traders. Torren, who is a recent newlywed, seems to live an almost life of luxury, basking in the wealth that his relatives and descendants have given him. Also, he's a bit of a social media man, which again I assume will be playing into a lot in the upcoming episodes. This is where he meets Pritchard, who informs Mallow of the Mule's upcoming party and says that he is in fact on the guest list and really wants to understand more information about the Mule and who the Mule really is. Now, we did see snippets of that party within the initial trailer and the teaser, so I'm imagining that's going to be a great conversation between the Mule and the Mallow. Most likely the Mule will get inside Mallow's head and learn about Pritchard and his plan. Again, we get to see Day and Song taking yet again more spores before the conversation with Dusk over the fact that their bodies deteriorate sooner, and Day is the only one that can change it. But this new bearded Day ends up cutting himself and allowing the nanobots to heal, and some mad points just to show that he's a puppet without the ability to pull his own strings. And then we end the episode for me with two very shocking details. So the first is this new invention of a black hole bomb that Dusk has essentially created with a team that have now harnessed the power of a black hole. But not only that, they can convert the energy and fire it across the galaxy to destroy planets with one blast. This is an incredibly terrifying weapon, Novacular. Now, this does make me wonder, is this going to be used against Calgon, or is it going to be used against Trantor when they attack? Like, is he going to have a self-sacrifice moment? Me personally, I think this is going to be the end of the galaxy. I think this is the actual Dark Ages. I believe that everything will build up towards the fight with the Mule. I think a young Dawn, or even Dusk if he's still around, will activate the device, but I think something will go wrong. I think it will cause an issue for the black hole that almost envelops the galaxy in a way, and that will then bring around the Dark Ages, or at least the beginning of them. And let's say Dusk does go past these 10 days, and his mind becomes weaker and weaker. Could the Mule dig deeper into his mind and learn about this information of the black hole bomb, and use it in the fight against Gale? Because ultimately, this weapon is a game changer. And then we end the episode with Dawn having a secret device and a connection to Gale. So what does this mean? Are Dawn and Gale working together? And is this what Dawn means when he says he's not worried about the Mule because he knows that Gale has a plan with her and her Mentalics? Have they struck up some kind of deal where if Gale can take down the Mule, Empire changes some of the rules? Let us know your thoughts. So overall, this was a really good second episode. The questions keep on coming, and I think the series is starting to build up quite nicely. I still think that the black hole bomb is the real third crisis, and the Mule is just something else that popped up and was unpredictable, because as we know, the Prime Radiant can't follow an individual person, only the collective as a whole. So then guys, my questions over to you. And yes, we do try and respond to all of your comments, as if it's one of our favourite things to do, reading and conversing with you guys and your theories. Right then, do you think Dusk will ultimately be the cause of the third crisis? What do you think the importance of the Invictus is? And what do you think the Mule's powers are really? Do you think there's a catch to them? Or is he just simply that powerful? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as we'll be bringing you more content about Foundation later in the week. And as always, we'll catch you next time with something new.